Welcome back to the No Filter Friday show. I, of course, am John Kanopik. Thank you guys very, very, very much for tuning into the chaos, to the weirdness that is this show that I've been doing here for the last 5 episodes. This would be episode 6. I appreciate all of your guys' feedback and engagement and responses, as always. You can reach out to me directly at NFFSHOW on all social media platforms. That's NFF Show on all social media platforms. Let me know what you like, what you want to hear on future episodes, and things like that. Now, over these last 5 episodes coming into today, we dove into more serious types of topics, from the government to corruption in social media, mainstream media, mental health, and trying to find solutions to try to get the toxic sludge out of the world's bloodstream. But I thought, because this week is the 4th of July, depending on where you are in the world, you obviously might not be celebrating it because this isn't your Independence Day. But if you are an American, I happen to be overseas and listening to this podcast and are going to be celebrating it on the 4th of July, I thought we would try to make this episode a little bit more lighthearted and, give you guys a little different side of things. That way you're not expecting a totally serious podcast every single week. I like to keep things, free flowing, so to speak, which speaks to the unfiltered, unbothered, unapologetic, and unburdened nature of our show. So I thought, because it's the 4th of July week, we would dive into a few things that are in the red, white, and patriotic theme. Starting with some childhood 4th of July memories. Now, of course, with all of these different topics and things that we're going to be covering on this episode, of course, I want your guys' stories. I want to know what you guys experienced as kids growing up. And, if you have, fails that happened on the 4th of July, if you had some, nostalgic memories of, different foods and things that you ate when you were growing up, or even when you do now as an adult, let me know, NFFSHOW. In addition to that, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing 2 different episodes. Next week's, I'm planning on doing an AI-themed episode where we're going to be testing what is legitimately real audio and video clips and what are ones that are actually made by way of AI. And I would love for you guys to send me in your clips. See if you can stump me. Send me in some clips. Say, hey, is this real? Is this Memorex? Is this real? This is AI. Test my abilities to spot the differences, especially nowadays with AI becoming as increasingly realistic as it is in a scary way at times as well. It'd be really nice to have you guys giving me some things to listen to and look at, and we can put it out on our next episode. Like I said, it's going to be some video clips for the people watching on the YouTube side of things, as well as audio clips for not just the YouTube listeners, but for the people on the podcast feeds as well. And again, I want to thank you guys for all of your downloads as well on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, on Amazon. I've been looking at the stats and been very surprised, and I thank you guys very, very much for your constant downloads and responses. It means the world to me. But yeah, let me know some AI clips to me and some audio ones, some video ones. Let me know if you have seen any out there that strike a chord with you, and I'd love to put them up on next week's episode. And in addition, into the following week, we're going to be diving in a little more nostalgic road, looking at trends from the past and things along those lines. So if there's anything out there, that might be making a comeback that really sparks nostalgia in your eyes, in your mind, again, shoot me a message on NFFSHOW on all social media platforms. I would love to know what you guys are seeing out there in social media land that's striking those nostalgic chords for you, or things that you would love to see make a comeback that might not be back in the mainstream just yet. So yeah, let me know. OW. I would love to get your guys' input to help drive these next couple of episodes. Diving back into the episode for this week, I want to start back with some red, white, and throwback, as it were. Some childhood 4th of July memories. When you're thinking about growing up, you're thinking about barbecues, you're thinking about, sparklers, sitting out late nights, on your front porch with you hearing all those cicadas and crickets and things out there. It's like 85, 90 degrees. I grew up in Iowa, so obviously, even when the sun went down, depending on the time of year, especially around June, July, it was still exceptionally warm and humid most times. I always remember, sitting back in my parents' living room, and my mom was sitting in her recliner, and my dad was in his recliner in the other part of the living room watching TV, and I was always sitting on the floor, either playing my games or watching whatever my dad was watching. He was watching wrestling or Three Stooges or whatever he was watching. And just having the front door open, because obviously back in the 80s and early 90s, things were a lot safer than they are now, where people are more apt to have their windows and doors open even after the sun goes down, because they weren't as worried about their safety as they are now, unfortunately. But yeah, it brings back a lot of memories, being able to walk around Iowa City as a kid at night in the summertime when school wasn't in session, and just, being a kid, playing with my neighbors, the Mitroses across the street, shooting baskets on their hoop they had attached to their garage, playing capture the flag in our neighborhood of what was now commonly referred to as Goose Town. It's a very old and historic neighborhood of Iowa City. And just enjoying being a kid, not worried about, bills, not worried about, having to be able to afford groceries, or not having to worry about, am I going to be able to pay my electric this month or my rent, because, everything's rising in cost. When you're a kid that age, all you're worried about is, am I going to get nailed by a water balloon when I go to try to capture the other team's flag down the street? Or riding my little ATV down the block, down to my grandma's house, who just lived a block away. We even had our own little grill out back. My dad, one thing he was good at, and that was grilling. He made exceptionally delicious homemade smash burgers, amazing, incredibly tasting steaks and pork chops. My mother was a phenomenal chef when it came to making like spaghetti and Wiener Schnitzel and things like that. And tenderloins, of course, Iowa. If you live in the Midwest, you know what pork tenderloins are. And I'm not talking the fancy hoity-toity stuff. I'm talking breadcrumbs, panko, rolled up those smashed pork cutlets, and then frying them up. And oof, yeah. Thinking about that just gets me drooling already. Thinking about that. But yeah, we. As a kid, we did a lot with having, block parties and, the neighborhood traditions. Again, even when the sun was down and the street lights came on, our parents still trusted us enough and knew that we were safe enough that we could hang around our neighborhood till, 8, 9, sometimes 10 o'clock at night, depending on the time of year it was and how close we were to going back to school and things like that. So, it speaks to Americana as a whole. Those times of years, the hazy days of summer, the days that you didn't want to have end because you knew, sooner rather than later it was going to be August and it was going to be time to go back to school, and you weren't ready to go back to school yet. I remember back in those days, we went to the Iowa City airport, which was it still is a very small municipal airport. It doesn't have any major like jet lines or anything like that. It only has like 2 or 3 runways. It's primarily for private planes. And that's where we went and we watched the fireworks every year. Eventually they moved them from the Iowa City airport over to City Park, which is the big park in Iowa City. And we got to go out and stay up late, 9:30, 10 o'clock and watch fireworks. Even as a 6-year-old, I got to do that. And I remember that. And I'm looking forward to my son, who is now going to be 5.5 on Thursday, which is insane to think about, taking him to see his first fireworks display at my aunt's little neighborhood subdivision that she lives in over in Spring Hill. We're going to be taking him to see those on Friday night. So, that kind of stuff just speaks to, how easy life was when you didn't have all the responsibilities that you have when you're an adult. And you're just able to be in awe of everything around you, from the smells to the amazing fireworks that are being shot off to the music playing. In the 80s and 90s, you had like Salt and Pepper, you had Fresh Prince, you had Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. You had Nana Cherry. You had even you want to go rock. You want to go rock? Let's go rock. You got Queen. You got Kiss. You got Def Leppard. You got Poison. I'm a big musical encyclopedia, as you'll come to find out as we continue to go over these episodes. So I know a lot. Music was a big staple of my life ever since I was 4 years old. So those bring back a lot of nostalgic memories as well. You know, the moment you start hearing those first beats of Summertime by Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith, if you're nasty, you automatically know what that song is, and it immediately kicks into high gear, those nostalgic memories, and you just all come flooding back. And part of it is because you miss it, and you miss how incredible it felt being in that moment and hanging out with your friends and talking about, what you were going to be doing the rest of the summer. If you're going to be playing baseball or, playing soccer or something like that, or getting ready for the next school year and playing football, or track or whatever the case is. And it speaks to it a lot more, especially nowadays, with how anxiety and stress driven the world has made us from a mental standpoint, that the nostalgia is enhanced that much more. That, you wish you could go back in time and rewind the clock back to those days. And it hits me a lot, because I see how fast time goes. Like, literally felt like yesterday my son I was getting ready to meet him for the first time at the Providence Little Company of Mary Hospital in Torrance, California. I was getting ready to meet him for the very first time and hold him, instead of just seeing him on ultrasound videos. And now he's going to be 5.5. And he's just this incredible little guy that's insanely growing up more and more every single day, faster and faster. And that's why, I really wish time would slow down, because time is very fleeting. And that's why I'm glad we have the technology, we have the videos and the photos, because back in the 80s and 90s, the nostalgia was harder to capture, because you didn't have the technology. You either had your big Polaroids or your disposable cameras that you had to take your pictures, and then you had to go down to Walmart or your local photo shop at the time and wait however long for them to develop the reel and then give you their little booklet with all of your photos in it. To, if you ever watched National Lampoon's European Vacation, the big gigantic video camera that Clark Griswold had that literally took up like the size of his head and then some, to record videos. And it was a lot harder to capture those memories then, as opposed to what it's like now, how it's easily you just whip out your phone, hit record, and boom, instant memories that can be revisited anytime you want. I always missed being able to do things like that. And that's again, it ties into time going by so fast. You want to capture every single moment and be involved in every single moment that you can, because you know how fast things go and you don't want to miss out on anything, especially if you have a little dude that is hitting all these milestones and things more and more every single day. It blows your mind. And you're going, I want to get, and we try to get a photo of him, at least one, every single day, and have tried to do that over the last 5.5 years. Not just for our own memories and nostalgic purposes, but for him as well. So when he gets older, he can look back and be like, wow, these guys got all this footage of me, and I get to see my mom and dad in there, and things like that, and my aunt and my cousins and things, my grandma and things like that. It's things like that just hit you the hardest when you realize how fast time goes by. And we look at things so differently now. It's hard to be in that same childlike mindset when you're an adult and you have all of these massive things flying at you at the same time. I miss it. And I think I'm not alone in that aspect. I'm guessing a lot of you out there feel the exact same way. I want to know, let me know what were your traditions when you were growing up, and ones you might still be doing to this day with your families. Let me know, what did you guys do for 4th of July, for the summer gatherings and things like that? Let me know. NFFSHOW. I want to know. What did you guys do? What were your traditions? What songs, if you hear a song playing, immediately takes you back to those moments? What were some like incredible recipes that your family or that you yourself might have made for your friends when you guys cooked out or when you guys had your little gatherings and things like that? Tell me, let me vicariously live through your eyes as far as how you grew up and things like that, because I want to know. Because it's very possible when you mention things that could spark even more nostalgia on my end and vice versa. So, I want to know what you guys think. Again, I appreciate all the feedback I've been getting so far, and I implore you guys to continue with that, please. All the views and all of the listens and all of everything is just, it means more to me than anything. So thank you guys very, very, very much. Now, I want to shift a little bit from going from personal experiences and nostalgia to pop culture, which is obviously a very, very big thing and has only grown more as time has gone on. And I want to talk a little bit about, the most iconic, like, American moments on TV, in movies, and things like that. Things that really, resonate with me, and things that I will always relate to being, patriotic and bits of Americana and stuff like that. Not necessarily things that happened on the 4th of July per se, but things that are, patriotic, that make you think, oh, this is Americana right there. Things from like the dramatic speech from Independence Day, with Bill Pullman, saying all the, today we celebrate our Independence Day, and everybody's screaming and cheering as they're getting ready to take on the aliens. And Randy Quaid there in his little jalopy plane, saying, up yours, and then he's like, and at the end Randy Quaid goes, hello boys, I'm back. I mean, that iconic scene. You also have, of course, movies like Born on the 4th of July with Tom Cruise. That, again, these are iconic movies that speak to the Patriots side of Americana. And, I even remember, like, when we were in elementary school, we had a bunch of performances and skits that we did for assemblies and things like that, where I got to actually be Uncle Sam. And one of them had the full hat, had beard, and was speaking, to how Uncle Sam wanted you to join the military and trying to be all red, white, and blue as a 7-year-old. And that was entertaining, to say the least. And again, this is something that I wish we had cameras and videos back in those days, because that would be something I would love to watch back as an adult, because there are things when you look back at them and you're going, yeah, this speaks to America. And as a veteran, and even something as simple as if we're going to any kind of a sporting event, or any kind of, like, if we go to a wrestling event, or anything that involves having the national anthem being played before the start of that performance or sporting event or whatever the case is, gives me goosebumps and makes me tear up, because I love this country so much, because it's given me so much, so many freedoms, so many abilities to be able to do what I'm doing right now with you guys here. And that's speaking my mind, and that's being able to talk to you guys about things that mean the world to me, that I'm passionate about. And I get to see your guys' reactions and responses as well. And that wouldn't happen, if you were in potentially other countries that don't have the freedoms and the liberties that we have here in the States. So, I'm very nostalgic and I'm very patriotic when it comes to anything tied to Americana. I remember, like, a bunch of, as a kid growing up, commercials and things you'd see on TV, like right around the time of, right about the end of May, beginning of June, through, I'd say, maybe the end of July. That's when you started seeing all of the red, white, and blue themed sales, be it like car dealerships, local car dealerships. Sodas tried to bring out their more red, white, and blue flavors. Now, like with Mountain Dew, like they did some patriotic versions of Mountain Dew that they had released out there. The weirdest thing is that it's more of a psychologist related thing. Is what it's a trigger where if you lived here all of your life and you are an American, even if you're not, even if you came over here the right way, you've been an immigrant and you became a nationalized citizen, just something about the colors, seeing the red, white, and blue together, hearing that new patriotic type music that these commercials put in their ads speaks to you, and it triggers that emotion. And I'm sure, if we lived in Britain or we lived in Canada or we lived even in Russia or China, and I'm sure they have their own patriotic things too, where they'll play music and they'll play clips and ads and things that have their flags, and it probably strokes the same nostalgia in everybody else overseas. And a lot of it is just because we are so ingrained to, I should say ingrained, we're more conditioned to react that way. Like I've noticed, and this is part of my psychology classes that I took when I was in school. If you ever listen to ads on radio, be it terrestrial radio, be it Sirius XM, and you hear them pitching something to you, be it a service or an item or whatever the case is, and they give you the phone number to reach out to buy whatever they're shilling at the time, you'll hear it repeated 3 times. And this is by design, because it's been proven and studied by a lot of brain scientists out there that in order for a number to really stick in someone's head, it has to be repeated 3 times in a row. And the same kind of a thing goes, with commercials that were back in those days as well. They would repeat them multiple times because they knew, okay, if I do this enough, it's going to sink in that person's head and they're going to remember it and they're going to want to reach out because I've spoken to them and I've hit those little triggers in their head that make them interested in what I'm trying to sell them, and they're going to go out and buy them what I'm asking them to buy. And yeah, I always thought that was kind of funny, but and it's things you don't realize until somebody points it out that, hey, it's this way. And you're like, whoa, I never even noticed it. And then you're more cognizant of it. And then when you hear it on the radio or satellite radio, whatever the case is, you're like, yeah, they're literally doing that. It just, you're not conditioned until someone actually points it out to you. And again, that leads back into the commercials for different times of the year for obvious reasons. Once you've got May through like the end of July-ish, August-ish, you've got all of your patriotic summer-themed commercials out there. Usually around August, I'd say October-ish. That's where you get your fall stuff. That's where you get Starbucks pumping out all of their stupid pumpkin spice ads and things like that. Once you hit around the end of October into January, that's when you get all of your holiday stuff, your Christmas, Thanksgiving, and then January into April-ish, that's where you're going to be getting, your New Year's stuff, and you're going to be getting your new car sales and things like that, because those usually kick off right around the start of the year. So it's these kinds of things where you look at it and you go, we're being conditioned without realizing it to an extent, because it's become so ingrained in our daily lives over all of our years that we've been on this rock. Some of us, in our 40s like myself, some of them are in their 20s, some of them are in their 70s. We're all conditioned to it. We've all accepted it as gospel because that's just the way advertising works. Different times a year means different types of sales. And, I want to know, going back to my original point about the movie moments and dramatic speeches and action scenes and things like that, what are some of your guys's, what would you guys feel are the most iconic speeches or scenes that you can remember that really speak to the patriotic side of things. Again, like I said, mine off the top of my head is just Independence Day. Bill Pullman on top of the vehicle when they're getting ready to fight the aliens, giving that massive speech. But yeah, what are your guys's? What do you guys feel is the most iconic movie scenes or television scenes that you could think of that really speak to Americana? Let me know. NFFSHOW. I wanna know what you guys think. I want to know what your thoughts are as far as the most iconic movie and TV scenes that you guys can remember or have seen recently. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate it greatly, as I've said. I want to shift again into a little more nostalgia. Let's go the family truckster route for a moment, if you'll indulge me. Need a quick drink here, a little hydration. Dutch Brothers coffee. Not good to drink at night if you're trying to lose weight because there's a lot of calories even in it, even though it's a protein-based, zero sugar coffee. So Dutch Brothers, highly recommended if you have a Dutch Brothers in your area. Just drink it during the day, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Because if you drink it right before bed, scale's not going to like you in the morning. And that's my little ad spiel for the moment. But I want to get into the family truckster. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you've had a great childhood. Because who does not remember the family truckster with Clark and Elaine and Rusty and Audrey and all of the Griswold clan from National Lampoon's Vacation. That, of course, was the iconic station wagon that they drove cross-country from Chicago to California to go to Wally World and on the way there, of course, picking up Aunt Edna from Kansas. And she ended up eating sandwiches that were peed on by her dog that she brought with her, and then she passed away, and they had to stick her on the roof as they were driving through a monsoon in Arizona on their way to bury her before going out to Wally World and being told it was shut down and by the lovable, rest in peace, gone way too soon, John Candy, before he got shot in the butt by a BB gun by Clark Griswold, and then they got to ride all the rides before they were temporarily arrested, and then the Roy Wally, the owner of Wally World, said, nah, let him go, and then they all got to ride the rides together, and the movie ended. So yeah, National Lampoon's Vacation, highly recommend it. I did not spoil anything because who has not seen it? And if you have not seen it, I'm sorry, but it's been out for 40 plus years, so, get with it. But that speaks to what I'm getting into now in this next segment, and that's the Great American Family Vacation, and tied it into summer and nostalgia. Of course, back in those days, back in the 80s and the 90s, we didn't have traditional navigation like Google Maps or Waze or whatever application you may use right now for your navigation, or even, navigation that comes standard inside most vehicles nowadays. We had the great old school, archaic, prehistoric Rand McNally Atlas. The big old massive, I'm trying to get it on camera, big old massive book that you could buy from your local store like Walmart or or Walmart or Target. Or you could, at the time, I'm sure they still have some offices, but they aren't as big as they were back then. You could go to your local AAA office, and when you were buying traveler's checks, and man, that sparks a memory for me. I'll talk about in a moment, but you could get an atlas from them, or not necessarily even those big atlases. You could get the little roadside ones if you went to a rest stop in any state that you might have crossed the border over into. They had rest areas where you could use the bathroom, get some snacks out of the vending machine, and then they had actual paper atlas or paper maps of that particular state. The little square ones that you would open up, and it would be gigantic, and you could circle the where you were wanting to go, and then draw in the best route and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's again, brings back a lot of nostalgic memories for me, thinking about road trips that we took as a family. That was one of the things I was very happy that we got to do as a family, was getting to go. When we lived in Iowa, we had the ability, we tried to take a road trip every summer. And I remember we took ones, when you lived in Iowa, you didn't really have major metropolises to go to. Like, our major metropolises when you lived in that eastern part of Iowa that we lived in was Des Moines, which was 2 hours west, Quad Cities, Davenport, Moline, Bettendorf, and Rock Island, which was about an hour east. Those were the two main metropolis areas of our state. Otherwise, you're going to be going a 4 to 5 hour drive, and you're going to be going down south to St. Louis, north to Minneapolis, east to Chicago, or west if you wanted to really go to Omaha or go down to Kansas City. So my memories as a kid of going on vacations were, we took trips to Branson, Missouri, which was the Las Vegas of the Midwest, South Missouri, getting close to Arkansas. We took trips to Kansas City. Got to go to the NCAA Basketball Hall of Fame. I have some photos. My sister, my parents took photos of me, and I looked very lanky. And my sister recently shared them with me, so that definitely brought back memories. We went to, of course, St. Louis. We went up in the Arch, and my father decided, we'd never been in the Arch, and we were kids, so we didn't know what to expect, how the little elevator worked to get us to the top of the Arch. So my father, being the prankster that he was, the jokester, they had a little wheel, like you were in this little capsule, and there was like 4 of you could sit in, and it was enough room for 5 of us, so I was able to go in with my whole family, and a little wheel in the middle. And my father, because the way the elevator works, we can go up in the Arch. Obviously, it's not a straight shot. It's not like the Sears Tower. And yes, it's the Sears Tower. You can get that new name out of there. It's always going to be the Sears Tower to me. So I'm dying on that hill. It will always be the Sears Tower in Chicago. Do not say otherwise. But it wasn't like an elevator in the Sears Tower where you can just go, it just takes you straight up and down like a normal elevator. This one is an arch. So it had to go up, and the elevator, jutted in order to go diagonal or go angled to get up to the top, where you could look out the window at the very top of the arch and see everything down below. And my father, was cranking the wheel, acting like the little capsule was going to break, or that there was a malfunction and something was going on. He was trying to act all freaked out, and of course, 3 young kids, perfect. And yeah, so he had a great laugh at that. And my mom was none too happy about that. And that's a memory, again, that I had growing up as a kid. We went up to Milwaukee. We went to Minneapolis, got to go to the Mall of America for the very first time. That thing was massive. Even though later on in my life, I got to go to a mall that's actually I got to live near a mall that was actually even bigger than the Mall of America, square footage wise. Of course, we went to Chicago, my all-time favorite city, a city I'm fortunate enough to get to go back to a couple months ago. For my birthday, my 45th birthday, got to take my son to Wrigley Field for his first Cubs game. Got an iconic photo my wife took of him and I walking away towards the stadium. And Wrigleyville Sports, which is they were big partners of the Chicago Cubs. They have a shop right across the street from Wrigley. They actually, on their Father's Day post, put up the picture of myself and my son. My wife was behind us, so you got my back, my son's back with our jerseys and our numbers on them. And it says Happy Father's Day, and that's just an iconic, it's a memory I'm going to always cherish. And it's so amazing that my wife got that and they were able to put that up. But got to go to Chicago quite a bit, growing up. We went, I think we even like when my father and everything was going good financially with my family, we got to do it, go even further. We got to go up to the Badlands in South Dakota, and I got a picture of us by Mount Rushmore. We got to go all the way to Washington, D.C. We drove to Washington, D.C. from Iowa. So again, Family Truckster speaks to my family and to me specifically because we got to go that far. And we got to, we have pictures of us by the Washington Monument, by the Lincoln Memorial, by the White House, by the Capitol building. And in that same vein, not only we get to go over to Washington, D.C., my father is from Johnsonburg, Pennsylvania originally, up by Pittsburgh, and we drove actually up through there, and we got to go up to Pittsburgh, to where he was born, and the boys' home that he went to. So we went up there, and then we drove down into to DC, and we even went to Atlanta, and have a story about Atlanta for you guys. We had a nice minivan. We had a nice, good Econoline van. And this was like hoity-toity at the time, because you had the two main driver and passenger seats. The middle seats, it wasn't like the normal vans now where it's just like a flat seat and then everybody's smushed together. They were like captain's chairs for the driver and passenger seat. The middle section had two captain's chairs, and then the back row actually had a little fold-out bed. It was like a little couch seating in the back with that turned into a bed. So yeah, like I said, we were living the good life then. But we drove to Atlanta to go down there on a vacation, and we decided to go to the CNN Center to check out, Turner, and we actually got to walk inside CNN Center, and they were blacked out at the time, but they were actually taping an episode of WCW Saturday Night, so I thought that was really, really cool, and that actually helped, increase my love for wrestling. We also went to Underground Atlanta, we went to the Coke Factory, but when we went to the CNN Center, rather than parking in the ramp like normal human beings would do, my father decided, hey, let's save us a little money and let's park on the street. Even though there were people across the street underneath this little bridge overpass thing that we could see them staring at us and our vehicle, we were like, oh, it's going to be fine. Yeah. I bet you can guess what happened. Spoiler alert, it got broken into. We came back from doing the tour, and there was a crack in one of the glasses, and yeah, all of our stuff was stolen. So, and that was back, again, in the early 90s. So, yeah, obviously things have gotten a lot worse in Atlanta over the last 30 years. But, yeah, mental note back in those days. Don't park on the street in a major metropolis with a vehicle that screams, rob us. Because that's exactly what's going to happen, and that's exactly what did happen. But, yeah, like I said, these are all of these were like nostalgic road trips, good ones, bad ones. I even remember, and this was when I was in first grade, we went to Kansas City, and I remember it because I actually wrote, they did the whole, what did you do on your summer vacation? And they wanted you to draw a picture of something that you did on your summer vacation. So I wrote about going to Kansas City on our one of our road trips, and we went to the hotel, and got into the hotel. I don't remember what hotel it was, what chain it was, but in the bathtub, there were several hairs of the downstairs variety, and they were not ours. So, yeah, that was that. And I actually wrote that. You actually had a picture of a first grader drawing a picture of a bathtub in the drain with these hairs in the drain that were clearly visible. And as I said, they were the downstairs variety hairs, not the hairs on top of your head, the ones down in your nether regions. So, yeah, again, memories that I will always cherish as a kid and now as an adult. But, yeah, I mean, we did a lot, which I was very happy about because I get cabin fever really bad, especially now as an adult. And it was nice to be able to get away for a while, even as a kid. So it's something that I've always been kind of a person that's wants to be out and doing things and making those core memories and stuff like that. And we try to do that on weekends now when we're not working. But that was one thing I was very happy about. Not all my childhood was good, and I'll speak to that down the road. That was one that really part of my childhood that I really loved was getting to do those things. And I missed those kinds of connections with my family that I had at the time when everything was actually going good before everything went totally cattywampus. And I remember, going and checking out different gas stations, and as we crossed over borders into different states, trying to get magnets because we had a big map on our at home that you could put magnets from every single state. And every time we went to a new state, I always tried to get a magnet because I want to get all 50 states. And I believe I actually ended up doing that. I think I still actually have the magnets, come to think of it. But yeah, I mean, these are things that always will resonate with me, and things that I want to be able to share with my son. That's why we try to do as many road trips and things as we can with him, so he can have these core memories for when he's older. So I want to know what you guys did as kids, as growing up, and what you might be doing now with your children. Let me know. What were some of the road trips that you took as a kid that you will always remember? What was something that was like an iconic moment for you that you're like, this will be something that I'll always talk about whenever anybody asks me about my road growing up as a kid? This is something that always comes to mind first and foremost. Tell me your thoughts. Let me know what you guys did as a kid growing up. Even if it was something where, we just went down a couple hours to visit our grandparents or something, give me your nostalgic memories of things you did as a kid growing up. And please and thank you. I'd love to know, and did you guys also, did you have soundtracks that you guys listened to? Go back to the music theme for a quick sec. Are there songs that you can think of that remind you of going on road trips? Like just really quick, whenever just a handful of songs that make me think of road trips that we took. Baby Likes to Rock It Like a Boogie Woogie Choo Choo Train by the Trucksters. All You Ever Do Is Bring Me Down by the Mavericks. Anything by Elvis Presley. My dad was a massive Elvis fan. Low Rider. I don't remember who actually sings that. I don't remember who sings it. But yeah, those are just ones that off the top of my head that immediately sparked those road trip nostalgic memories. So let me know, again, what trips did you guys take growing up? What trips are you taking now with your families if you have them? What soundtrack, what songs trigger those memories for you? Let me know. NFFSHOW. Thank you guys very, 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 very much. And for the final segment of this patriotic episode, you gotta talk about, food. You have to talk about food that just screams USA. Whether you're a big Joey Chestnut fan and you think about the Nathan's annual hot dog eating contest out there on the East Coast, to, again, if you lived in the Midwest, thinking about those delicious, amazing pork tenderloins, ketchup, mustard, and pickles on it, hit the spot every single time. And every when I go back to Iowa, even though I've been trying to lose weight and continue to take off the poundage, I'm actually down 100 pounds since my highest weight ever, and I'm very proud of that. I still try to get like a grilled tenderloin or something when I go back to Iowa, when we go back to visit my wife's family in Iowa. Casey's Pizza, again, Midwest staple. You can't go wrong with Casey's Pizza. My wife is a massive breakfast pizza lover from Casey's. What foods spark these patriotic summer memories to you guys? To me, again, if we're going to go the little debate route, ketchup versus mustard, I would say I'm more of a ketchup person, though I love mixing them together, and depending on what I'm putting them on, like if we're having a nice, big, juicy Angus beef hot dog, I'm slathering on that ketchup. I'm not a big mustard person on the hot dog. My wife, she'll only put mustard on her hot dog. If it's ketchup, mustard, ketchup for me if it can only be one. Otherwise, as I said, I love mixing them together. Grilled versus boiled. Chicken wise, I would say you can't go wrong with a good grilled chicken breast fresh off the grill. Although here in Tennessee where we live, we have a restaurant called Maniacs in Franklin, Tennessee, that has this most delicious boiled chicken, and absolutely jaw-dropping and drool-inducing chicken. So I'm not opposed to that. Pie versus cake. Even though I'm trying not to do either one now. Growing up as a kid, I was always a cake kid. For some reason, as a kid, I didn't really like the graham cracker crust. I'm fruit pie type of person. I'm still not a big fruit pie person. If you put several pies in front of me, I'm leaning towards the chocolate cream pie. I'm leaning towards the pumpkin pie. I'm not an apple pie person. I'm not a blueberry pie person. I'm not a rhubarb pie person or anything like that. Or if you give me a nice moist piece of chocolate cake with some frosting on top that's not going to blast me in the face with sweetness, I'm good to go. Or a slice of tiramisu, which again would be considered cake because it's layered. But yeah, growing up, as I said, I was a cake kid over a pie kid, but now little bit of both. And of course, growing up in Iowa, one of the major things that we're known for, besides being a big pork producer, is corn. And you cannot say Americana 4th of July without talking about corn on the cob. I mean, come on, guys. That's an iconic staple. Hot dogs, corn on the cob, burgers and chicken breasts on the grill, some pork chops. That is the American summer menu to a T. Of course, you can have your apple pie. More power to you. Not my thing. But yeah, those are just massive staples to me. And again, we went a couple of years back. We went to Wrigley. Actually, it was more than that. It was like probably 5 or 6 years ago. We went to Wrigley Field on the 4th of July, actually. This was actually the first time they'd ever actually done fireworks at Wrigley, because for the longest time, Wrigley Field never had fireworks. It was like sacred ground. But then they finally decided, hey, you know what? We're trying to get more modern, so we're actually going to light off fireworks after a game. And we went and saw the Cubs play the Marlins on the 4th of July, and they won. And they fired off fireworks. And I remember, having a big old tub of popcorn there, having a hot dog, watching the fireworks after the game was over. And that was just Americana at its finest. You got your national pastime, baseball. You got hot dogs and popcorn. Again, I'm not a Cracker Jacks person. If you are, more power to you. And you were just there, not worrying about anything else in the world at that moment. Just enjoying being in that moment, watching those guys on the field doing what they do best and putting on a great show for us. And those are things I will always, always, always remember. And, I've heard other traditions in different parts of the country. They have their own, some weird, usual regional 4th of July foods and things. I've heard people put all kinds of weird stuff on corn on the cob. Put all these kinds of weird toppings and things on hot dogs that have no business going on hot dogs. And again, that's the beauty of this country that we live in, that I call home. Or, if you're not listening to this in the States, this is the beauty of the United States, and a lot of countries out there, is the eclecticness, is the fact that it's not just everything is just one way, no matter where you go. Different parts of the country have different traditions that are all related to the same holiday. In this case, 4th of July. Midwest has their traditions. The Southeast has their traditions. The West Coast definitely has their traditions. The Southwest, down by Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, they have their traditions. Northeast certainly has theirs, and of course, Northwest has theirs. And that's even Hawaii and Alaska have weird, different traditions that are commonplace to them, that they celebrate the 4th of July. And it's beautiful because it is the tapestry of what our country is, and it's different viewpoints, different ethnicities, different traditions, all mixing together. Because in 5 or 4 days from now, on Friday, it is our country's birthday. We are officially going to be, 249 years old. And yeah, I can do math very quickly. 249 years old. 250 if you want to say we were actually founded in 1775. The Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. But yeah, it's amazing to think about that. How far we've come, how much we still have to go over these last quarter of a millennia. Because yeah, it's just everything it's all together blows your mind. because like I was thinking about this the other day, and I've got friends who live over in England, and top to bottom, if you drove from the top of Great Britain down to the bottom of it, it's like 250 to 300 miles, I want to say. Britain ain't that big of a country. It may look that big on a map, but it's not. We literally drove from Iowa. Like if you drove from Des Moines, Iowa to Chicago, Illinois, you're driving the entire distance and you stuck Great Britain on its side, you would be able to drive the entire length of Great Britain and still have a little bit extra to go before you reached Chicago if you left Des Moines. That's how mind-blowing it is, how big our country literally is. Because you've got so many things, so many different places you can go and things that you can go see. And I'm 45, and at last check, I want to say the total number of states out of the 50 that I've been to that I can mark off is like 35 or 36. And I've never been up to the Great Northwest. I've never been up to Alaska or Washington State or Idaho or Montana or Oregon. And I haven't been on the East Coast, like the Upper East Coast. I've never been to Massachusetts. I've never been to Maine. I've never been to New Jersey. Never been in New York, like New York City. I've been to Buffalo because we went to Niagara Falls, my wife and I did. Never been to Connecticut, Vermont, Rhode Island, New Hampshire. Basically, East Coast and Upper East Coast, Northeast, and the Northwest. And I haven't been to any of those areas yet. And I've been around 45 years. Like I said, I'm the kind of person that does not like being in one spot very long. So for me to not have those bases covered yet speaks to just how large this country is as a whole. And, you know, it's beautiful, though, because of the fact that you have so much still that you're able to do and go see. Growing up in Iowa, you didn't have much. Like, I lived in Iowa City, which, of course, is the University of Iowa, very large college community, one of the biggest cities in the state, you know, with Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, notwithstanding. My wife was from Keota, Iowa, 45 minutes south of Iowa City. But like her entire city is 1 square mile that she was born in. So they had even less to do. So she didn't even really get to do any of the things that I got to do as a kid because they didn't really get a chance to really go very far or do much. They didn't have the ability to. It sucked for her, especially because of the fact that she got cabin fever a lot worse than I did. And we didn't get to take these road trips. We didn't get to she didn't get to make these kinds of memories that I was fortunate enough to be able to make. And I want to be able to do that more for her and for my son. And I think you guys need to do that too. If you're listening to this and you haven't ventured out, do it. If you have a vehicle, if you have money and you can afford a plane ticket, do it. I highly recommend it. Get to seeing the country because it will open your eyes and it will revitalize you in ways you cannot even possibly imagine. Because when I get doom and gloom and I get all, I feel all, depressed or whatnot, I know that my wife and son and I, we can just hop in the car. We can drive 45 minutes up to Nashville and go see something we haven't seen before, even though we've lived in this area now for, almost 2 years. We can drive 5 hours south and go down to the Gulf of America and go down to, Panama City Beach or Mobile, Alabama. Get out and do things, guys. Make these core memories. Enjoy all of the Americana that you can, especially this time of year. This is the perfect time to do it because we are in the prime American patriotic time of year because our birthday is coming up on Friday. So for now, I want to wrap this episode up here just by saying again, thank you guys again so much for all of your feedback, for listening, for tuning in, for all of your downloads, for all of your subscriptions. It means the world to me. I struggle sometimes with feeling like I'm doing well as a human. I have mental health issues. Who doesn't? But I've been struggling a lot recently. But reading some of your guys' comments and the support you guys have been giving me revitalizes me, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. It means absolutely everything to me, and it helps drive me not only from a mental health human standpoint, but it also helps drive me as far as keeping this crazy show we call No Filter Friday going and providing out future episodes. And again, I'm still looking for a permanent co-host. I've got some people I'm talking with right now that I'm very interested in, but I still want to get more. If you're interested in joining me on this weird, psychotic, rambling journey, if you have a fresh perspective, if you have ideas for future episodes, if you feel like your voice hasn't been heard and you want a platform, let me know. NFFSHOW. I want to hear from you. I want to know if you want to be a co-host. Tell me what you bring to the table. Let me know what your thoughts are, what your visions are, because, if we jive, I'd love to give it a tryout and see if we can make this something permanent. So again, thank you guys very much for your time and attendance in regards to the co-host ask as well. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this little trip down memory lane from a nostalgic, patriotic 4th of July America standpoint. Hope you guys are having a great summer to this point. Things aren't going too chaotic wherever you call home, be it here in the States or across the globe. Yeah, like I said, get out there, enjoy the world, see things you never thought possible. Don't be afraid to step outside the door and embrace the world the way it is, warts and all, because it's gonna do nothing but be a benefit to you in the long run by getting your eyes opened to everything that's going on in the rest of the world. But for now, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this patriotic, nostalgic trip down memory lane, 4th of July themed episode of the No Filter Friday show with me, John Kanopic. Again, all social media platforms. Going to send it out one more time. NFFSHOW for those of you in the military or familiar with the phonetic alphabet. It's November, Foxtrot, Sierra, Oscar. I'm sorry. Wow. Hello. Let's try it again, guys. Take two. November, Foxtrot, Sierra, Hotel, Oscar, Whiskey. NFFSHOW on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, on all major platforms on podcast related. Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, Apple Podcasts. You can find me on all of those. This episode will be dropping on the 4th of July, on our nation's birthday. I'll be putting out clips here later today and again throughout the week like I normally do. Thank you guys again so very much for tuning in, be it if you're watching me on YouTube or if you're listening to me on the podcast stream. Greatly, greatly appreciate all of your support, feedback, and comments. It means the world to me. Stay safe out there. Have a great 4th of July weekend, whatever you might be doing, wherever you might be going. Stay safe. I'm going to be setting off some fireworks with my little one on Friday, teaching him not to set a firework on its wrong side and nearly shoot the firework and blast them in the face, which I did when we lived in Alabama. Not my proudest moment. Didn't know how to set the firework up properly, but yeah, that was an oopsie on my part. That I don't want to divulge into too much, but yeah, my wife and son still not let me live that down to this point. But yeah, stay safe out there wherever you guys might be doing here this 4th of July week and on our nation's birthday on Friday. Love you guys very, 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 very much. This has been the No Filter Friday show with me, John Kanopic. Catch me on all major platforms and all social media feeds, NFFSHOW. And as we always do to wrap up every single episode, ladies and gentlemen, take my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next time. Stay safe. Be kind to each other. Always keep an open mind. Question everything. America, USA, #1. Love you guys, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a great one, and we will see you next time. Adios and goodbye.